we are at a very difficult position of being the last speakers for the day. Try to keep it short and interesting for the group, and it's also very difficult to follow in the in the way after so many good speakers have already have spoken ahead of us. We'll try our best. So we are here from Hiveminds to share our experience across hundreds of, actually 100 plus clients that we manage across various digital mandates, and share what we think and know of e-commerce in India. And when it comes to e-commerce in India, we believe you ain't seen nothing yet.
Check.
Is this working? Yeah, no, it's fine. So, while it is the toughest session for the day, the beauty of last session is also like, you have the insights from some of the eminent speakers so far. So in the deck that you will see now, you will see a glimpse of whatever you heard right from Harit through Vikram. And some of it you will see absolutely, insightful through an e-commerce context, right? Now this slide clearly talks about the fact that while e-commerce is a very, very big market, today we're talking about almost $120 billion in terms of GMV from e-commerce in India's space perspective. But is it really big? The fact of the matter is, even today, there are 12 million retail outlets in India. And there are more than 1 million distributors and wholesalers who really are contributing towards the offline retail. And offline retail, therefore, is pretty big in that context, right? And if you notice, India today, there are 3 times more offline retail outlets as compared to some of the large economies like US. What it really means is, while e-commerce is booming, the offline retail definitely has a pretty strong role to play. Now, one of the important point, which you'll notice is, over the last few years, e-commerce definitely has grown and grown very, very fast. This slide here clearly talks about the last year's festive season itself. And we all know Indian loves to shop during festives. Is that true? Show of hands, do we all shop during festives? And absolutely, the data here shows that the retail at an overall level grew by 7% just during festives. And what was driving that growth? 24% was the growth from online retail, which means the offline retail grew, but the margin of growth was much lesser as compared to the online retail. And this is just festives that we are talking about. The interesting point to note here is 75% of the orders out of these online retail that happened came from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. What essentially it means is, it's not just the urban population, the metros, it's also about the aspirations in the tier 2, tier 3 cities. And whether it is young, whether it is affluent, whether it is aspiring population, or whoever you talk about, everybody is shopping online today. Now this data here is pretty interesting. We heard a lot of other speakers today talk about the internet penetration. Almost 1 billion population today in India have internet access. There are equal amount of people who are using smartphones. Now that's an interesting data point. Now the other data point also is more than 200 million people are doing online transactions. And which, by the way, if you look at the data, it's very comparable to large economies like China. We are, by the way, double than US as compared to when it comes to online purchases being done by mobile device itself, right? But if you look at it from an e-commerce penetration, we are still at a pretty nascent stage. We are only 8% as compared to China, which is almost 37%. Even US, which is around 22%, is 3 times to what we are in terms of penetration. Now that really means that there is a huge space to grow for e-commerce as an industry. Right? And if you look at the growth that we have seen over the last few years, if that continues, by 2030, we truly believe that India will be the 3rd largest market from an e-commerce perspective, which will touch almost like $300 billion from a GMV perspective. And what it essentially means is 8% penetration that we currently have from an online purchase will grow to 18%. Now that, from all of us perspective, from a marketer's perspective, is a huge opportunity to grab. right? And definitely we also have a pretty strong role to play from an industry perspective.
So though the numbers are very impressive, but it's not about numbers. E-commerce is all about the aspirations of a whole new generation. Depending on when you started working, the way we would have spent our first paycheck is very different from the way it is getting spent today. So till 3 years back, anyone joining workforce with their first paycheck, they would go to a mall, most of them, buy some stuff for themselves, which included, let's say, clothes, shoes, makeup, and send some bit of that money back home. Now, if you ask anyone in the last 2 years, from the first paycheck, the young generation people try to buy the most expensive or high-end smartphone that they can afford, and 75% of those take the loan on the day of their first salary to fund their first smartphone purchase. And that is how the consumption patterns are changing. And in metros, it's all about get it now. So what took e-commerce platforms close to 7 years to reach 10,000, to become a 10,000 crore media platforms, quick commerce has done 1/3 of it in 2 years. So this growth is just unprecedented. From puja flowers to mobile phones, everything is getting bought and delivered in urban India by affluent people in 10 minutes. This puts in focus a deeper segmentation of the consumers. We at Hiveminds use the HM4E shopper matrix, which segregates the 200 million, only those 200 million active e-commerce shoppers into 4 buckets depending on their affluence and their contribution to e-commerce GMV. These are 4 segments, starting with emerging, evolving, established, and exclusive shoppers. They are very different from each other. The emerging ones are the ones who have not bought even once on any e-commerce platform. However, they have transacted digitally. So they are about category discovery, and their all journeys are vernacular. Then there is evolving customer base who is extremely value conscious and therefore needs lot of coupons, discount, etc. to nudge them to buy once, but they buy at least once in a year. Then there is a consumer base which buys more than once in a month. This consumer base is all about upgrades and self-service and has all the time continued relationship with their phone, so they do not want human interaction in their buying journey. And then there is an exclusive base who is trying to mimic their exclusive shop experiences into a digital platform. Therefore, there is a lot of pressure for personalization or expectation for personalization. And all these 4 segments have their own needs for a good marketing plan. So from the affordability and trust and education in the lower segments to higher personalization and exclusivity and affordability, a speed of delivery in the higher segments.
Yeah. Now, if you're talking about those 200 million users who are transacting online, right? There is a very big, large green pasture which is not even touched. And you're talking about rural India. Now, if you look at the graph on the left, you would have seen throughout the day, in some form or the other, from various speakers. What we essentially notice is from an online purchase perspective, 85% of these purchases are being made by the upper or the high income group people, right? The lower end of the spectrum still is untouched. And therefore, that leaves, it's a huge opportunity. Now, does it mean that the people in rural or semi-urban areas do not have access to internet? Absolutely no. We saw that almost 1 billion people in India have internet access. Now, the interesting data point to note here is the people in rural India are leveraging internet, or they're using internet 20% more than the folks in urban population, right? However, they only contribute to 10% of the overall retail from an online retail perspective. Now, that also means that there are certain challenges that industry is facing from serving this population. Now, what are those challenges? We really figured out that there are 3 broad categories of these challenges. Number 1 is, of course, the operational challenges. which, to my mind, if we think about online purchase or e-commerce, the first and foremost, advantage that we all want is convenience and, doorstep delivery. And by the way, urban population now we are, really, we want delivery to be done on the same day. Deepti talked about, quick commerce. They're talking about 10 minutes delivery. Now, the biggest disadvantage, some of the, rural or the semi-urban areas have is the logistic infrastructure is absolutely not there. The last mile logistics is the biggest challenge that, e-commerce players face today. Now, imagine a situation where somebody from Mumbai wants to gift something to their parents on their anniversary, and, the delivery is 5 days to go. They were better off calling the local retail shop owners, who is next door or maybe in the local market, and say, get the delivery done to their doorsteps maybe in 20, 30 minutes, 1 hour, right? That's the biggest disadvantage today that has, and that also poses a big challenge to the retailers. The other big challenge that we have figured out is the whole idea of, returns, exchange. There's a lot of categories, like for example, fashion, where you really want to know that, hey, whether the size will fit me, whether the, color is suiting me, or so on and so forth. There's a trial before you make the purchase. Now that logistics, from a reverse logistics perspective, return perspective, repair perspective in some categories like electronics or, consumer goods, will always pose a challenge for e-retailers to really be on top. The other challenge which we are seeing is on the consumer behavior side. Now, Vikram touched upon the cohorts of consumers, and that's a reality. Even within urban population, by the way, you have different cohorts, and the cohorts can be derived from demographics. It could be basis the income levels, it could be basis the literacy levels, and come what may. You have multiple cohorts that can derive. And each of those cohorts will have different buying behaviors. The consumer behaviors, what really motivates them to buy, will be different. Now that shifts significantly when it comes to rural or semi-urban population. How do you really ensure that you are on top of that game? The other problem also is the literacy levels of these users. Now, in terms of the fact that, hey, are they comfortable transacting online? What about the safety, security of the transaction? How about the fake product that gets sometimes delivered online? All of these challenges are really adding up to the fact that, hey, rural population is difficult to serve. Last but not the least, it's the competition. And by the way, for them, the competition is not the other e-commerce player, but it is also the competition from the local, retail outlets or the shopkeepers who are really having relationships. Now, in typical rural or semi-urban areas, it's all about relationships, right? I'm comfortable as a buyer in those locations to go to the shop and say, hey, if I'm buying from shop X, I know that, hey, the delivery quality will be good. I can go from a post-purchase experience perspective, be it, exchange, be it serviceability, it's all there. They're on a call away. It's very important that, those challenges need to be addressed. Last but not the least, it's also about the, changing regulatory environment, right? How do you really, take care of, and changing regulatory environment from digital ads perspective? And therefore, that brings us to the section that how do we really solve for this to keep up the momentum high from an e-commerce perspective? And we bucketize them across 4 broad categories. The first and foremost is, of course, the logistics. So it's very important for the e-commerce players to ensure that, hey, the last mile connectivity is there, especially looking at, hey, can we build the fulfillment centers closer to the demand centers? And, more so from cold storage infrastructure perspective. The other one is, how do you win customer trust? We heard, speakers talk about AI and how it is relevant. Can I use Gen AI to really address and, get closer to the customer's need and figure out, hey, what is the consumer behavior? What will drive them to buy? And can I be coming much, much closer to them? One of the other areas which we truly believe will drive, better outcome here is getting more sellers on board. Right, so one is on the buyer side, but can we get more sellers on board by really creating policies around that, educating them, and creating that infrastructure? A lot of D2C brands are coming which are localized, and sometimes the buyers also want local products, and hyper personalization. Vikram touched upon that. How do you really make sure that we are able to leverage that aspect of AI to ensure that we are covering the right customer segment? Last but not the least, I think payment security is a big challenge which definitely needs to be addressed.
And additionally, we heard that it is no longer about the cohort. And AI is enabling us to think of customer as one. So marketing to N equal to 1, where each customer is unique and wants a different treatment. With AI getting in, it is possible. Think of an experience where you walk into your home and tell your mobile chatbot that I'm feeling very hot today in the house. What's the problem? And your AI tells you, give me a minute, I'll scan your home and tell you. And in a minute, it tells you that your fan is rotating at a speed lesser than expected. Maybe coil problem, time to change your fan. Then you say, okay, my chatbot, please tell me which fan should I buy? And it will open up the top 5 rated products that you can buy from. And you can keep refining, asking it to match the decor of your home, color of your walls, or your budget. And this is not an experience, it is not a thought experiment. This is a reality. All of us sitting in this room will experience a journey like this within this year. So we are, and this is not only us. We are moving towards a customized journey for every single internet user in the country, who will interact and have their user flows in their preferred language, in their preferred time zones, and in their preferred, and will be exposed to products that they can easily afford. So in a nutshell, to summarize, what should we ready for? What does the future look like? It is going to quick commerce is really becoming a reality and norm, and will keep on penetrating beyond metros. D2C, what Pradeep said, it is not about the new customers, it's also about the new sellers. So this whole explosion will see more and more B2B partners coming on board. So the seller ecosystem will also expand. Conversational commerce is the way people would like to talk and buy. The shopping experiences will be immersive, where from a kitchen hob to makeup, it's already we are trying and buying on an image how it looks. It'll go beyond more products, beyond to more products. Influencers have already have taken a large share of media spends. Their contribution to overall orders for every e-commerce will keep increasing, and they will become a standard line item in every media plan. And new customers and new sellers will come from both rural and semi-urban areas. So let's take a quick glimpse of what to expect, and with this we can close. There's music. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you so much. You guys have a great day ahead.